This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey to filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and today we're talking about retirement savings for freelancers, how much you should be saving if you can, and whether or not you need a Sep IRA, a retirement savings plan made specifically for those who are self-employed.
Oh, it's going to be a barn burner today, Griffin. Retirement plans. Thank you to the listeners who did not close the window already or pause your podcast player. We appreciate you.
Well, I recently was talking with a freelancer friend of mine about retirement savings, and I also just did a whole video for the recount about kind of the state of American retirement. Yeah. And it just got me thinking about how, not some of us are hitting the benchmarks that financial advisors recommend. Many of us are not. I mean, the median American is not hitting the recommended benchmarks. And I think it's important to talk about what you can put away, and if you can put away money, where should you be putting it? What investment vehicles?
I love it. And it's something you got to think about when you're self-employed. So I have a full-time job at a regular company. So I have 401k available to me. But you're different, right? You basically don't have that option available to you, or at least in your freelance world. I forget, you kind of have both jobs.
Well, yeah. At the moment, I am fully employed and have a 401k. I don't have any match at my company, but I do have a 401k available to me. And for 3 years in between my two full-time gigs, I was 100% freelance and didn't have even have access to a 401k. And so I had to kind of figure out what to do on my own as a freelancer. So I guess, first of all, we should just acknowledge kind of the state of Americans saving for retirement. And did you see these recommendations that financial advisors have?
I watched your video, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, I had never seen this before, so I didn't really have a good sense of am I even doing okay? I felt like I was. I felt like I'm a very good math person, and I take care to save money when I can. I felt like surely I was doing a good job, but you always wonder, are you doing enough? And I mean, the median American family, it's a relatively low income when you think about how much. It doesn't leave a lot of room for saving, because right now the median income for a 35 and younger American is $48,000, which doesn't leave a lot to save.
To save away
your rent. Yeah. So I understand the median American doesn't have, is not really granted the possibility for retirement savings. But if you are fortunate enough to be in a position where you are making enough that you can save 15% of your income, which is what financial advisors recommend, I think the financial experts' advice was by the time you're 30 years old, you should have 1 year of your annual savings put away as retirement savings.
Okay.
So
when you say retirement savings, are we talking about money in an investment account, like a 401k or IRA or something, or is that net worth, or what are we talking about there?
I think so. I mean,
the only thing I'm thinking that might be different is real estate. I own my house,
right?
And so how much does that play into where I'm supposed to be? I don't know.
Right. Well, and if you're like most people who own a house, your home value is probably relatively close to how much you owe on it. I mean, I bought a house last year, so I mean, the only equity I have is the down payment we made and the year of improvement I've made by paying on the mortgage. But they almost even each other out. So
right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. We should say at the top, we're not financial experts, so I'm not sure if we really want to count your full net worth or just the amount you consider your retirement savings. But I think that it's just a nice ballpark to say if you make $60,000 a year, hopefully by the time you're 30, you have $60,000 saved as retirement savings. Yep. And then by the time you're 40, it's supposed to be 3 times. So if you make $60,000 and you're 40 years old, hopefully now you have $180,000 saved. And because you have it in an investment account, it's growing with compound interest. So I think a comment I saw on my video, there was kind of the cynical take, which I understand where it was coming from, but they also weren't really understanding compound interest. They said, the advice is by the time you're 67, you should have 10 times your annual pay. And this person said, financial experts only want you to have 10 years worth of pay by the time you're 67. So they're saying you're going to die at 77. And I was like, well, that's not how this works. With compound interest, you are not taking out, all of it at once. And so you could even take out a year of it and let the other 9 years of it sit there. And that's growing in interest. So it should last you. I would think it should last you 30 years if you had 10 years worth of pay set aside. So I will say those numbers gave me some confidence that I'm on the right track. I felt pretty good about the amount that I have saved. Are you feeling good about your retirement?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I always feel like I could save a little more, but I'm beating those benchmarks, which is good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I always feel like I'm not doing enough because there was a time when I first moved to New York and I was working at Bloomberg, and Bloomberg paid me well, and it was a great company to work for, and I felt like I had extra money sometimes, and so that's when I opened up my first just taxable investment account. It's like just I have money that needs to go somewhere smart. So I opened up an account with Betterment and just started putting here's $5,000. I just put it in the savings account, and it will grow with the stock market. It's diversified across the stock market. And then I at some point I had to stop doing that. I just didn't have the extra cash anymore. And so I felt like, oh man, it's been years since I just put a deposit into my
post-tax account.
Yeah. So I really thought I wasn't saving, but then I forgot how much of it I have automated. That I am saving money. And a lot of it I'm doing at tax time. So I guess I want to talk about how are you, do you think you're actually saving 15% of your income like people recommend?
I do.
Okay. And how are you doing it?
I have it automated, right? So I have a 401k through my work, which comes out automatically. Boom, easy. Then we have a vehicle called, what's it called? Employee stock purchase plan. It's another kind of benefit from my job where we get to buy a company stock at a discount. And I have that automatically happening. And whenever I get that stock, I just cash it in and add it to my savings. So those are the two big ones. And then I have an automatic payment into my post-tax account as well. So every month, actually twice a month because I get paid twice a month. I try and automate as much of my finances as possible. So all my bills get paid automatically. All my savings happens automatically. I don't have to do anything. I just kind of check in and make sure it's working. So yeah, 401k, employee stock purchase, and then extra money to the post-tax investment account.
Right. And then do you ever use any personal IRAs? Just like the one...
I have a traditional IRA from my old jobs where I've rolled over old 401ks because you can take those and kind of do a little better with some lower fees by getting it out of the old 401k and into an IRA, which I do with Vanguard. My 401k with my current company is with Fidelity. And then with Wealthfront, I actually do have a Roth IRA with them because I was able to contribute some to that. And then I have a post-tax investment account with them as well.
Yeah. So do you just worry about the IRAs at the end of the year when you're doing taxes?
Year. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you named several different accounts that all have different tax implications. They do. Your 401k with your company. Well, first of all, do you get any company match, or is it just your?
I do. 50 cents on the dollar up to some amount. Yeah. So that's a nice little bonus. So if I don't even count that money in my savings percentage, but I guess I should, right? That kind of ups it too. So
yeah.
And I'm lucky enough. So there's a max you can put into those accounts every year, and I'm lucky enough to be able to max out the 401k every year, which is nice.
Right. Well, yeah. When I was putting together my priority list for my friends, and that's what we want to talk about today is if you have any money to save, where is the place you should be putting it first? And you could argue that the first thing you should be doing is paying down high interest debt if you have any. There's debt that's comfortable. We live with mortgages and car loans. And if they're less than inflation, if they're in the 2, 3, 4% range for interest, you can live with that. That's pretty comfortable. But once you're talking about 10% on a credit card or 20%, those are things you want to try to pay down first because they're underperforming or they're you're losing money faster than you'd be making it on the stock market.
My rule of thumb, and again, not a financial advisor, but
Right.
I think the stock market, they say like over time, goes up about 7% a year over a long enough span. So that's kind of my, if debt is lower than that, I might focus on saving first and getting into my 401k, etc. And if it's above that, I'd probably focus on paying down debt. Now, the only caveat to that is if you do have an employer match available, like that's 100% return, right? If it's dollar for dollar or something. So you want to get all that employer match right away because that's free money.
Well, yeah, that's why my first two priorities for saving were, in fact, I actually put the 401k above emergency savings, which is controversial perhaps, but like to your point, if there is free money on the table, even though this is money you don't get to access until you're retired without a penalty, you should take the free money first. So I am in a position where I have a 401k with no company match. I still love my 401k. It's a tax advantaged account. I should use it, but it doesn't have nearly the priority that yours should. You should be maxing it out every year because that's just, the max is $19,500. You can put away $19,500 a year in a 401k. And if your company's giving you half of that, what is that?
Well, I think it's half up to a certain dollar amount, so it's not as much as it sounds like. But it is an extra $5,000 or $6,000 they add on top, I think.
And that's just money that you either get or don't get.
Right.
It's just,
and I will take it, please. Thank you.
So and in a relationship where, if there's two people that are married and one of them has access to a 401k, like maybe you're the freelancer and your spouse has a job that provides a 401k benefit, you might argue that you should focus on, before you even think about your freelance retirement savings, that you should be maxing out your spouse's 401k because of that company match. Yeah. Yep. Now, another caveat would be there are people that value having completely separate finances, especially if you're in a relationship. Maybe you're in an abusive or terrible marriage and you are thinking about an exit plan. That would be one reason not to.
Goodness.
I don't know why I took it to a really dark place. I read a lot of like relationship advice, Reddit.
Apparently, you had a whole story ready to go with that one.
There's so much advice about like, preparing your finances for, for divorce. This is a question for a divorce lawyer. And as Reddit often says, you can call a divorce lawyer before it doesn't mean you have to get divorced. This makes it sound like my marriage is not going well. My marriage
I was going to say,
wonderful.
Griffin, do we need to have a little chat? Are we okay?
No. I don't know why. I enjoy reading the stories of people like, growing as a person and like realizing they're in a bad relationship. And it's not projection. It's just...
That's good. It's
like my own version of therapy. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge, I understand there are reasons. There are people that like to keep their finances separate. And you and I are both people who have commingled our finances entirely with our spouses, right? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we do it all together.
Yeah.
But I know there are people who are not in dangerous or bad relationships who keep separate finances, and that's
who still like to keep
perfectly
separate,
fine too. Just depends how you want to do things.
Right. But if there is free money on the table, try to get that first. If you're fortunate enough to be doing freelance on the side and you have a 401k with a company, 100% of your first $19,500 that you're saving in a year, which for a lot of people that would max out the 15%.
Yep.
To do that may be the only thing you need to do in terms of retirement savings is fill up a 401k, and especially if there's a company match. My second priority was handling emergency savings. A lot of financial advisors will say you need 6 months of either income or 6 months of expenses set aside. I actually have less than that, like ready to go in a liquid savings account, but I guess I feel like I have pretty quick access to my other like invested taxable dollars.
Interesting. Okay.
So I've kind of split the difference between like I have some available in savings ready to go, and then if I needed even more money, I could pull some out of the stock market.
I'm mad about that 6 month number, I think, which makes me feel good.
Yeah. I was there for a while, and then like I think when we were buying the house, I took out some money to help with the down payment, and then I just never fully replenished it. I was kind of building it back up over time, but I'm also kind of realizing how much cash flow I need, and maybe I don't need tons of money just sitting in like a 1% savings account.
Yeah, makes sense.
The third priority I have, so if you've already hit 19.5 in a year, you've filled up, well, I think I should say, even if you don't have that company match, maybe the 401k becomes your second priority if you have access to it. It's still a tax advantaged account. So in my case, I still want to max that out, even though I don't get any company match, because I'm still getting a tax benefit for putting that money aside. After that would be the IRAs, which I've always just done at the end of the year, but you can put $6,000 away in an IRA.
Yep.
And you can do two of them if you're in a marriage.
The IRA stands for individual retirement account, so you do need two separate accounts, one for you and one for your spouse, but you can put $6,000 in each.
Right. So, and you can do those as Roth or traditional. There is an income cap on Roth. If you don't know the difference, they're both tax advantaged. They're both good. You should talk to a financial advisor about which one, and everyone has different opinions about which one will be more beneficial in the future. But they both pretty much have the same mathematical tax advantage. The Roth is you don't get any tax deduction today. You just put $6,000 in this account. It sits there until you retire, and when you take it out when you're retired, you don't have to pay taxes on the growth.
Right.
Whereas a traditional IRA, which I think anyone can use regardless of income limit. Maybe there is an income limit. You do get the tax deduction today, so there is a tangible benefit right at tax time to set the $6,000 aside, and you can do it after the calendar year. So you're filing your taxes on April 15th. On April 14th, you can put $6,000 in an account and claim it as your last year's contribution. I think, right?
Yep. So there's a little period of time where you can kind of double dip.
Right.
If you haven't done it.
And you make sure you have the money. That's kind of how I do it. It's like I spend like the first 4 months of the next year trying to save up that money to put away. But you take the tax deduction, you get some knocked off your tax bill for the year. But then when you retire, then you have to pay taxes on the growth. So two options for you. But, if you fill up both of those, or if you're single, you do one for $6,000. If you are married, you do two, and you can get $12,000 into these accounts. I mean, now we're talking about if you've maxed out a 401k and two IRAs, you're talking about $31,000. I mean, that's probably more than most people need to put away in a year. So this is where I think for a while I'd been recommending to a lot of my freelancer friends, you need a Sep IRA. It's essentially a 401k for freelancers. And I've realized in doing this math here that yes, if you are a freelancer who doesn't have access to a 401k, if really 100% of your business is just you and you're not married to someone who has a 401k, then you probably do need a Sep IRA. But a lot of families are like this, where you might have access to one 401k, you each could put away two IRAs. That's going to get you quite a bit of savings without ever needing to get to a Sep IRA. And you don't have one, right?
No, I don't really have so low income.
Right. And Sep IRAs, I also realized they're just complicated. They're not complicated to set up, but they're kind of complicated to fund. Because here's how a Sep IRA works and why I have one, and I do think that many freelancers would probably want one. It is essentially a 401k for people who don't have an employer to give them a 401k. It's an individual retirement account, an IRA. I think the Sep stands for self-employed plan or something, or self-employed profit. I can't remember what it is. But you can put money in it. You get a deduction off your taxes. So it's a tax-advantaged account, just like 401k. But the contribution limits are actually higher because the way it works is you can put away 25% of your profit. So not 25% of your net income as a business person, but 25% of your profit. But the challenge is you don't really know what that is until, maybe you're better than me at accounting, but I don't really know that number until the end of the year when I do taxes. What did I make? What were my expenses?
And can you fund it all at that point, or do you have to do it as you go, like a 401k?
You don't have to do it as you go. So it works out for me to do it at the end of the year. But it is, the years when I was 100% freelance and I'm making a good amount of money over the course of a year, but it's like, uneven and I don't know how much it's going to be. Suddenly I have a big chunk of money I can put away in a Sep IRA. And was I responsible enough to be saving that aside the whole year? Because there've definitely been years where it's like, hey, I could put away $20,000 in my Sep IRA right now. Do I have that money available at the moment? Maybe I have $10,000 at tax time to put away, but I need to kind of come up with this other $10,000 because it's like, wow, there's a good tax benefit. I really need to come up with this money.
But you got to come up with the money
to come up with the tax benefit. But yeah, if I don't have enough to put away, then I can't take the full tax benefit. So I guess you kind of want to calculate as you go during the year, but know that it's kind of a weird calculation because it's not even exactly 25%. It's kind of like you do this like 92.3% calculation. I can't remember what it is. It's like in your taxes, you do it. It's like first you have to multiply your profit by this one ratio that's almost 100, but not quite. It's like that knocks out some of the taxes or something. And then you take it down to 25%, and that's how much you can put away.
Do you ever use like an accountant or somebody to help you with this stuff, or do you do it all by yourself?
I do it all myself. It is confusing, but like it's not that bad. I use QuickBooks Self-Employed to track my expenses and income all year long, and it also helps me pay my quarterly taxes as I go as a freelancer, and then just when I do TurboTax at the end of the year, it makes it pretty clear how much I'm allowed to put in. But it's kind of weird that I have to like finish my taxes, and even like if I'm making revisions, I can't yet put that contribution in because I might, if something changes, it might actually change how much I'm allowed to put in my Sep IRA. So I really wait until I've sent my tax return to the IRS, and then I go, okay, my tax return said I'm allowed to put this amount in. I'm going to go put that amount in my Sep IRA right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a little system in place.
Right. But it was a very high priority financial vehicle when I was 100% freelance, and now it's like I barely put anything into it because the other accounts can do a lot for me. And then, so that was priority number 4. Fifth priority would be just straight up taxable investments. You said that you have a Wealthfront account.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just essentially a savings account that is invested in the stock market, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. And you don't even think about what stocks it is.
No, they give you like a little like quiz, like what's your risk tolerance and stuff, and then what your goals are, and then they just automatically do it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I do a similar thing with Betterment. I mean, same product really. It's just you put in the money, they invest it for you, and then it grows. And it grows. I mean, the stock market has grown well in the last several years.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice. I'll take it.
Right.
That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff, Griffin.
Yeah. The only other thing I was thinking about when I was kind of like assessing my retirement was that, I want to be diversified across the stock market, which these products like Betterment and Wealthfront do. In fact, I would imagine both of us probably have referral links for these sites if anyone is interested in signing up. There may be, I think with Betterment, there's like, you can get $5,000 of your invested money.
Without the management fees or something?
Yeah. The fee is low, I think, for both these sites. For Betterment, it's like
0.25% or something?
Yeah, 0.25%. So what is that? It's if you have $1,000 invested, you pay $250 for each $1,000 that you have invested.
Now that's on top of whatever the expense ratios are of the underlying funds they invest in. So
right.
It does eat into things. I wouldn't want even a 0.25% fee on all of my investments, but for the post-tax stuff, these tools do some additional things for like tax loss harvesting and stuff like that I thought were cool and at least would try out. So, but the bulk of my money is not in that type of an account.
And I should mention, it's not just my taxable investment account that I have in Betterment. Like you said, you have some stuff across Fidelity, and I used to have some stuff in Fidelity. I pretty much moved everything over to Betterment. So I have my Sep IRA. I actually opened it with Betterment. I think most of these sites, like Fidelity, you can open a Sep IRA. I have my, I've rolled over a 401k into Betterment. like an old one from a company I don't work for anymore. And I think I have my traditional IRA in there. I have a bunch of accounts in Betterment. So you can do a lot of these things in a lot of different sites.
Oh, the other thing I have at Wealthfront is the college savings plans for my kids.
Yeah.
I forget what those are called, but
yeah,
they have some
college, the 529 plans.
529, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another tax advantaged account. So you could argue if you had more money to save, maybe a college savings would fit in between like a SEP and a taxable investment. Although it depends on where. I mean, you have 4 kids. You may need a lot of college money before you ever need retirement money. So
let's
maybe
not talk about how much money I'm going to need for college, please.
So maybe it needs to sit above the IRAs or even above the 401ks. I mean, this is money you would access sooner. So
one piece of advice I've always heard though is like your retirement is more important than college savings for your kids, because kids can get loans and you can't get a loan for your retirement. Like you need to make sure you're taking care of your retirement first. I'm trying to do a little bit of both.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I was looking into those the other day because I was trying to think like, is it even worth funding this? Like maybe I don't even, maybe my son will like just, we'll keep it as cheap as possible. Like I went to community college after failing out of a really expensive private school. But I noticed like the penalty is not too bad to take out money from a college 529 and use it for something else. So I suppose there's an argument to be made that it's still a good investment vehicle.
I would guess so.
Yeah. I was going to mention when we moved to New York, I was excited to like, you asked me if I've done a lot of this stuff myself. I was excited to talk to a financial advisor. I think I talked to one when I lived in Illinois. And then when I got to New York, I was like, I know the company I want to go talk to. So I went to this company and I talked to them about, investing, with that, or letting them manage my finances, my investments. And I think they wanted to charge 3% of your net worth annually, which they acknowledge was high. They're like, this is like, we're the premium investment company. But maybe that's not so bad if the stock market's always getting you 7%, or maybe they're able to earn you more than that. Who knows? But
it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I asked them like, well, what is that going to cost me over a lifetime? And they were like, well, we don't know that answer. We've never gotten that question. I was like, really? And I did my own spreadsheet.
Tell you.
Yeah, I made my own spreadsheet, and I was like, if you think about like what the curve of your savings will look like over retirement, it gets real big. I mean, it might hit its peak around the time you're retiring, and then you're gonna start pulling money out of it, and it's gonna shrink back down closer to zero by the end of your life. And so, like right now, you don't have that much net worth, but at some point, you're gonna have a lot. And when you start taking 3% of that, and you're doing this over like 30 to 50 years or something,
hundreds of
it's
thousands
a lot of money.
dollars.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they take from me. And I was like, I don't like the sound of this at all.
No, and they can't beat the market either. You just go into a target date fund or some really simple broad market fund, and those guys get beat 9 out of 10 times, I think.
Yeah. So like, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of like the savings part and managing my money now. And then I suppose at some point in my life, I'll probably need to talk to a financial advisor. Maybe I'll pay, hourly or something, and just like, I'll need some advice on tax stuff.
That's the recommendation I've heard, is you want to talk to somebody who's a fiduciary, meaning they have to do what's in your financial best interest, which a lot of the people you talk to aren't, and they're just trying to make commissions. And 2, you want to talk to somebody who's a fee-only financial planner, which would mean you pay them an hourly rate for their advice. They don't get a percentage forever of your net worth.
Yeah.
So it might cost you more up front, but save you a lot of money in the long run. Okay, I'm going to plug one thing. So I read this book like 10, 15 years ago. I don't know when it first came out. And it's got a real scammy title. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. But it really, it kind of set my whole financial outlook. It's all about like automating your finances and making things just like super simple so you don't have to think about it. Like if you want to like save money for retirement, you can't have to do it every month. Like it just needs to happen on its own, or you won't keep up with it. So most of my finances are automated, and I think it's a great book, so I'd recommend it. Right. Well, yeah, and the advice I had at the end of my video that I made for the recount is acknowledging that so many Americans are not,
in the video, it talks about how since the 1970s, benefits have dropped, wages have not kept up with worker productivity. People had more healthcare in the 70s than they do now, available from their employers. They had more access to pensions and 401ks than they do now. So like workers are getting squeezed. And so I understand that a lot of Americans do not have 15% to save. But if you could find anything to save, even if it is automating 1% of your paycheck, saving nothing is a terrible strategy. Even saving 1% is going to grow. So, I mean, you do have to just get yourself in the habit of putting something aside, even if there's not much left over after all your expenses.
What do they say? The best time to invest was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Right, yeah. Oh, I should... the other tool that we both use that I should plug that I like a lot is called Personal Capital. And it's another site that offers some paid services, kind of like Betterment and Wealthfront. They have their own investment accounts. But I just like it for its free features. It's just like a net worth tracking tool where you can plug in all your accounts, your credit cards, your mortgage, your investment accounts, your savings account. And so you just have in one dashboard, how am I doing with savings?
Yeah, it's something I like to check in on like once a month, just see how things are going. I in general try and kind of ignore because I have automated everything. Like I don't freak out about like, oh right. God, what did the market do today? I just care about the long-term trends. But it's nice to get a little touch point. The other, if we're plugging products now, I use a budgeting tool called You Need a Budget, or YNAB, YNAB.com, I think is their website. Yeah. Which is great because it helps you budget, but I use it just as kind of like a monthly check-in tool, kind of understand my spending, what categories are we spending money on and where can we cut back, and just gives me a good general overview of like the specifics of our day-to-day finances. So I use that and love it. Yeah,
that sounds like a good tool. And I should mention for anyone who's new to investing, as you mentioned, if the stock market crashes, that's not really a problem if you are not taking all your money out right now and trying to retire right now. Right. We're taking a long view of investing for our retirement. And if the stock market crashes, it crashed at the beginning of the pandemic. And then right after that, it grew back higher. So, as long as you're not taking your money out when it's at the bottom, you can weather the ups and downs of the stock market. You don't have to be afraid of putting your money there, as long as you believe that year after year, the economy continues to grow, which it has historically always done.
Don't time the market. It won't work.
Right. Well, we should take a quick break to thank our sponsor. And after the break, I want to learn more about Nick's muffin time-lapse that you filmed.
Yeah.
And we also
it's not a time-lapse of a muffin. It's a time-lapse using a muffin. Handy Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
Today we're talking about investing for your future, and I can't think of a better way to do that than building your own website to sell yourself, to get a return on investment. Put your story out there and let the revenue roll in. Find customers, use the commerce tools that Squarespace has built into their templates, and take control of your financial destiny.
So check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So Griffin, I just got back from vacation.
You went to Maui.
I went
Hawaii.
to Maui. Yeah, it was awesome.
It looks, the moment you got there and started taking pictures, it looked gorgeous.
Yeah, it was very photogenic, I'll say that. But I made a decision, I was going to relax. I decided not to bring my big camera. I was going to just be an iPhone photographer for the week, which I think was the right call. I think, I can geek out and spend a lot of time messing with the camera, but I more just kind of wanted to enjoy myself. So
I have a feeling if you were bringing your entire family and checking a million bags, you probably would have brought a camera. But because this was just you and Kristen alone, it felt good to just not be.
But I did want, I wanted the ability to do some filmmaking stuff. So I ordered a Manfrotto mini tripod. They've got just like a tabletop one, right? And one of their iPhone mounts for that, right? Like the nice little gripper to give you a tripod mount for your phone. Thought this will be great, because I know I'll want to set up a camera and take, just like selfies or do time lapses like the one that I took here. And that was supposed to arrive a couple days before I left, and it's like the one Amazon package in a year that was like lost. So it didn't show up in time. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going without a tripod and without a holder. So the very first full day we were there, we went up to the top of the volcano at sunrise, and so I wanted to take like a time lapse of the sunrise.
Right.
So I was like trying to balance my phone on its edge, like just like on a rock, like that was the best I could do, and I couldn't get it to stand up straight. So I took a half-eaten muffin out of my pocket and used that to kind of like mold into a little tripod holder thing and kind of lean the camera up against it, which didn't work great. But if you'll see in the video, it's kind of a nice pan down to start or a tilt down. That's just it sliding on the muffin, but it looked kind of cinematic, so it was okay.
That's something I've seen in a lot of time lapses, because even on a tripod, if you like have kind of a heavy camera and didn't tighten the tripod perfectly, it'll like slowly settle down, and it's one of those things that you don't even see it in real time, but because it's a time lapse, it exaggerates that very slow wilting.
So I kind of wish it didn't do that, but in the end, I thought it was okay. And I just used.
I thought this was a time when like the phone worked really well, because I like to shoot time lapses in like all manual mode, but just knowing that transitioning from the darkness of pre-sunrise to the brightness of after sunrise, it just wouldn't have worked in manual. And I thought the phone managed that change in exposure really smoothly. It wasn't like a lot of auto, irising back and forth. It looked really nice.
It was a little blown out in places because it was such a dramatic dynamic range, but I was pretty happy with how it turned out. It was a pretty cool experience. Yeah, so we're up on top of the volcano, and you can kind of see the clouds rolling in, kind of into the crater of the volcano, and then you see like the foreground stuff lighten up as the sun starts to come up, and some plants and rocks. And anyway, I was pleased with how it turned out for using a muffin. And that was just the time lapse feature built into the iPhone camera app, so I didn't do anything fancy.
Yeah. And cheaper than the Manfrotto.
Cheaper than the Manfrotto, which actually just arrived, but I haven't taken it out of the packaging yet. I tried to cancel the order, and they're like, no, you can't cancel this. And it came like 2 weeks late. I'm like, okay.
Well, in addition to all the financial products that we've talked about today that we'll put in the show notes, we'll be sure to put the link to the muffin so that people can buy the muffin.
Yeah, there's probably a good referral code for you on the muffins. So it was a Nutella
I'll do my muffin
muffin,
affiliate link.
But the iPhone did great for, we did the road to Hana where you like kind of drive through a rainforest and shooting video with that. God, it looks good. So maybe I'll share some of that too. You can throw it up right now. Yeah,
send it to me and I'll put it in the B-roll.
Sounds good. That's all I got, my friend. Yeah, good talking to you. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, my monitor's in my shot.